This episode is brought to you by Hausman Physical Therapy. Hausman Physical Therapy strives to have open and honest communication with their referral sources and provide the best care possible for their patients. They realize that barriers exist for patients, therefore they work tirelessly to address scheduling, financial, and previous experience issues that may inhibit progress. With offices in Norfolk, Pierce, and Randolph, they can accommodate most of Northeast Nebraska. Give them a call, 402-860-8105 in Norfolk, or stop at the Norfolk location, 700 West Benjamin Avenue, or even visit their website, hausmanpt.com. In today's tough economy, every drop of water counts. As costs rise, efficiency isn't just important, it's essential. With FieldWise, smarter irrigation means a stronger bottom line. Gain total control of your operation anytime, anywhere. Maximize water usage, reduce labor, and keep your crops thriving with ease. Wishing everyone a safe and successful harvest from FieldWise. FieldWise, efficient, automated irrigation that helps you grow more while spending less. For more information, call 888-983-4353 or visit us online at www.fieldwise.com. My next guest is a local businessman, current Ward 2 City Councilman, and one of the Norfolk, Nebraska mayoral candidates. Shane, thanks for making time to be here today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Again.
Yeah, again. Right.
This will be fun. I'm Zach Miller with my co-host Vance Neidig.
Thanks for gracing us with your presence once more.
I'm honored.
And we are touching base with Shane Clausen today. Shane, I'm glad you could make it here today. We had a few reschedulings and things because you had some family stuff going on.
I did.
I know that you had the debate. How'd that kind of go for you?
That was interesting. If you ever want to put yourself in a pressure cooker, get into a debate. I'm telling you, man, that was fun. It was tough, but we had a good conversation. I think both of us got our messages out, and people just can go from there with it, what they took from it, you know?
Yeah. Well, thanks for making time for us small guys over here at Agent Life Media Group.
I'm just a small guy too, guys.
Thank you, everyone, also out there for tuning in to the episode today. Please go ahead and start placing your questions in the chat. Please keep questions respectful and relevant. We will get to them after our interview portion of the show. This next segment is brought to you by Hausman Physical Therapy and FieldWise LLC here in Norfolk. To start the show, I would like for you to remind everyone why you are running for mayor.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, right there. Am I not in there?
You're good.
Yeah. So, I kind of grew up, when I was growing up, giving back to your community was a big deal. And that's kind of was something that I was brought up with. And so you can give back to your community in many different ways, through your church, through your school, volunteer with an organization. But for me, it came through right now. It's coming through city government. And so it's important to me to give back. And I think our community is moving in the right direction. And I think the opportunity to run for mayor, when it came up, I thought, well, this would be an opportunity for me to keep moving things forward and building a community that not only that I want my family to come back and live in. I've got a couple kids that moved away for college, and it'd be nice for them to be able to come back and live here and raise their family here and have their kids here, And then again, then for myself too, I like to see a community where, as I grow older, where I want to stay and retire here too. So it kind of goes across the board, right? You focus on the young, but you got to kind of focus on the whole demographic of Norfolk, and so it's been a great opportunity for me to just give back as much best I can and then help move things forward.
Yeah, and I know the whole. Just even entering the race has been kind of an up and down battle for you too. I know just, all the different things that have kind of gone, kind of come out there in the air. Has kind of tainted the election a little bit, but that's okay.
Well, you kind of find out things about yourself you didn't even know.
Yeah. I guess you're right. So, the first topic I want to get into, I would like to get your take on the recent news, not so more recent anymore, but the Norfolk Police Department.
Sure.
And the outside investigation that is being done.
Well, it's really unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and for the process of getting the building built on the ballot, it's kind of poor timing. But what I will say is that the city is going through the processes of venting what happened and what caused all this situation, and it's unfortunate because you've got on one end you've got some guys who've given a tremendous amount of time in their life. I think there's 30 years, 27 years, 20 years worth of service. And then you've got people on the other end who felt like things were going properly for them. So in the long run, when it's all said and done, I hope we can grow from it and build from it and keep moving forward, because our police department is a tremendous asset to our community. And with this building coming up on the ballot, I hope people continue to support that. I think we really need to get behind that so we can keep moving forward with our police department. But when it's all said and done, it's horribly unfortunate, but I think we get past it as a community.
Do you think that the climate survey that was recently voted on was needed as well, outside of the investigation?
Right. I think it's great. Anytime you can do that, even if you're a department head and you're probably maybe a little nervous about what people, but it's a tremendous asset for you to utilize to learn from the people that work for you. If you're a department head, maybe you're doing something a certain way, and this guy's not performing properly because maybe you're not doing things that work for his or her type environment. But I think it's a great tool to use in an asset as a manager. And then it's going to be good for the council to see kind of maybe what areas of the community maybe need a little work on, or what department head maybe needs a little more training, or what maybe the environment's not great for growth. And so I think it'll help us in the long run.
Is it something you'd like to do a little more often or implement it more?
I don't think we've ever had one before. So we'll see how it comes out. And then, if it's a positive or it's a good learning tool, I think it'd be a good thing to move forward with it. But they are a little bit spendy.
I was going to say, they're...
So I don't know if you want to do
Was there other options, like, of people that provide that type of stuff?
I didn't see any other options. It was just this was one that was presented to us.
Gotcha.
So
Because it was about 25,000 set aside for it, which wouldn't maybe take up the whole budget, but you wanted to make sure you didn't have to reallocate some, right? You plan to help simplify the budget,
right,
if elected. Can you explain how you're going to do this?
Well, I've already started. So it's kind of interesting because I've always been kind of I've always picked at the budget. And anybody that's been on the council or any department head will probably tell you the same thing. I've been that guy in the room going, what about this? What about that? And kind of when I start talking, like, oh, great, here he goes again. And so, but the problem was I was only one vote for all those years. Yeah. And I didn't get much, I couldn't get anything moving. Well, then here I come, start running for mayor, and I've got this idea of simplifying our budget where we go. Right now it's a level, we would approve a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4. And you go through all those budgets, and at the end of the day, you end up fighting over, on a $31 million budget, you end up fighting over about $500,000. And then we pick that $500,000 apart, and we get all done, and we feel like heroes because it's such a complicated budget. And I'm not saying it was done that way intentionally, but it's tough to follow.
Right.
And so this year, but then I started talking about it. When I was running for mayor, I'm like talking, the paper's picking up on it, staff's hearing about me talk about it, and all of a sudden, before you know it, we get it done to one. We get it where we just approve one budget, and it streamlined it a lot. What we usually take for time to go through budgets, it sped it up, and I think that was good because it was easier to follow for the rest of the council. And so this year we did approve a budget that it did a $2.5 million levy reduction. So I do think it helped. But we still haven't got there all the way. I've got some more ideas I want to put in there, and if I get elected mayor, I will. One of those is going to like a zero-based budget, where we take the actual expenditures from the year before and transfer them over. So what that means is, say I've got a department, I've got like 20 employees, but I need to have 25. So typically in our old budgets, you would budget for 25 employees, but you only have 20. And at the end of the year, you don't fill those spots. Those 5 employees, then the money that wasn't spent just goes back to the beginning balance, the balance forward to the next year. Or when I say beginning balance, that's what we like to call our fund balance or our emergency fund balance. And I would rather see them come forward with just what they had the year before, so just the typical 20 employees, not the extended 25 employees. So we see what they actually spent, and then they can come forward to us and say, now, here's the additional costs to do this. And then we get to approve all those additions
individually.
Individually, instead of just looking at the projected budget.
Especially if you succeeded at a lower cost the year before.
Right.
Like why?
So was there a need? Is there a need?
Yeah.
Or can this be cut
out? Or is it
out?
just something that you're saying we need this many employees, but apparently we really don't need that many.
And I know they did do this under Jim Shear in 1982. But because I called him and asked him about it, and lo and behold, he kind of told me, yeah, I was like, holy cow. But yeah, Jim Shear, but he was here for a few years in '82, and then it went right back to the old style. So I think I think there's a promise in it. I know we're getting a little pushback from staff because it's new, but that I don't. And again, if I don't get elected mayor, I don't know if I can do it because then I go back to council. I'm just one vote.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but even as a mayor, you don't vote, but you can push policy.
Yep.
And that's the kind of the thing that the mayor does. You kind of push policy, and then you hope it gains traction amongst the council. So you have to be very good about working with your council because they're the people that are going to approve what you're trying to do. If you can't get along with them, then none's going to get done.
Right.
So I do think that if we do this, we can find some savings. Plus, I think what's going to do is when you got to transfer over an actual budget as a department head, I think it's going to automatically make you be more fiscally conservative looking at moving forward. I'm not saying that staff's not, but this would kind of have to force you to be. Now, the one drawback could be if I'm a department head from the year before and I don't spend those funds, do I all of a sudden at the end of the year start spending those funds so that I can have that actual budget the next year?
Right.
So that's something.
But I might be a little confused. I thought we kind of talked about they kind of do that now a little bit, the way the budget is now.
Yeah, well, where it is now, it's just the projected budget.
Gotcha.
And they want you to spend a certain amount so that you can carry over funds to the beginning balance. Well, it's going to be a little different with a zero-based budget. You really can't do that. So you're going to have to like establish what your beginning balance needs to be, and you're going to say like right now it's 16% of the overall budget sitting there in an emergency fund, and that's grown over the years. I think when I first got on council, it was less than 8%, and when I talked to Randy Gates, he had told me years ago it was in the thousands. So they didn't have much for emergency funding. But over the course of the last 10 years or so, it's grown from 8 to 16, which you're supposed to have. That's what they recommend you have in your. When I say they, it's a governing body that, I shouldn't say governing body, but it's a
Consultant
highly
thing,
consultant. They they're telling you this is what you should have in your budget. And
They want you to have 16%?
Yeah, they do. They highly recommend that. So if you had an emergency, say the levee broke when we had the flood, and then you should have funds available to kick towards that, or even with the police department. Say the police department gets voted in. Well, the way that's presented with the half-cent sales tax, those sales tax dollars won't come in for a year or two. And so you're going to have to beginning fund your project. Well, since we have a beginning balance like that, we can kick that off right away by self-funding the top part of it and then building back the fund balance at the end of the project, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. It does make sense.
So,
anything else on the budget you want to get into at all? I think you explained it pretty well.
I know that property taxes lay heavy on people right now, and
we're
all feeling it, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen our insurance rates go up. We've seen what we pay for groceries, gas, and so I'm really trying to focus on a budget that can help alleviate some pressure on property taxes. So,
okay, we kind of already talked about. You explained TIF in your last episode pretty well,
right?
I thought. But I want to know how you plan to approach TIF if you are elected as mayor. This seems to be a big concern among voters.
It's a tremendous concern, yeah. And so what I've learned with talking to people, you've got people that are, pro. I wouldn't say you call it anti-TIF, but are pro-TIF. But let's just say you agree with that type of program or you don't agree with that type of program. I mean, TIF was voted in by in Nebraska in 1979. That's when the voters approved to put TIF into for our state to be able to utilize it. And
those dumb parents of ours.
Yeah, right. And so what I would like to do is create a citizen advisory group. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know how I feel about what I've seen done with TIF, but I want to listen to the people that are coming forward saying, "Listen, I don't appreciate this," and you can't force things on people all the time, because otherwise the pushback is so great. You can swing the pendulum one way or the other. So what I think we could do is create a TIF council that's going to create policy, right? And they're going to create a policy on how we use TIF moving forward. And what I'd really like to do on that council, I've got some names in mind that I know, but I really don't want to put it heavy-handed one way or the other. I'd rather see it be more like a split group. And then that group will be informed and advised, and then we'll come up with policy. Because I feel like in the long run, when you have a group of individuals that all agree, it becomes just a sounding board, right? Mm-hmm. You just keep going back and forth.
The echo chamber.
You just keep going one direction, and there's no stop to it.
And then what do you create? You'll create the best policy for Norfolk. See, what I want to see us create a policy that's good for Norfolk, not Columbus, Bellevue, Hastings, Kearney. Just what works here. And like the first thing would happen is that group would look at what we can blight, what can be blight substandard. They'll take a map out and go, well, maybe we can't. This area is not going to classify Norfolk be blight substandard. And what that'll allow to do, as soon as that's off the table, when developers come in, they'll automatically know, oh, okay, yeah, we're not. This may not be something that can be applied substandard. And I think it'll help streamline some things for economic development group, and really create a policy that the council can stand behind. And ultimately, it's going to come back to the council, and they may say, I don't know if I agree with that, and maybe it gets tweaked a little bit. I mean, one of the ideas I had just right off the bat was you hear a lot about from the people that don't approve of TIF that it's you're not paying your fair share of taxes, right? Even though it's really not the case. But what I thought you could do, and because I've seen it done before, is for street, police, and fire especially, is I asked Randy. I said, Randy, about the amount of money coming off the improvements on that development, because the improvements pay the TIF bond. The initial project that was already there still comes back at property taxes, but the improvements go to pay the TIF bond. You're still paying taxes in, but then it goes back to pay the TIF bond. So the city doesn't incur any of those tax dollars for how many years it's set up. Typically, it's set up on a 15-year term, but like J. Paul McIntosh's development, that paid off in 9 years.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of times pay off sooner because what they assess the value of those properties at when they set how much the bond amount could be is usually fairly conservative, and so they usually pay off quicker. But what I'm getting at is for street, police, and fire, what portion of that TIF payment would you need to recoup to bring back and make those entities whole?
Right.
And it's less than 6%. So that number to me is something you could negotiate with a developer on, and I don't think that's going to scare anybody away.
Right.
But then that would, you could actually make those entities whole and still keep moving forward. But if we let TIF go, which I was very afraid of a few months ago, I thought this is the end of it. So that's when I thought, and so I'm the one who pushed this hard, and it just kind of stopped everything in its tracks. But I think if we can get this set up, move forward, I believe it could be really positive for our community. But then again, you never know. I mean, but I feel like with a group of individuals hashing it out and coming up with a policy, and the council be able to stand behind it, it's going to be a lot easier to vote on projects moving forward.
Yeah.
Would you want a policy and on top of that maybe I don't know, I'm asking a lot here, but also when they come up, maybe an advisory council on top of, you have your policy, like what you said, Laura. I like where you were going with that. Like maybe everybody gets together and, hey, maybe we shouldn't do these areas or whatever.
Right.
And then you had some citizens, whatever, maybe on both sides, just like everything that came through. That's a lot, but or big ones or whatever. Hey, you guys go do your thing and then come present to us on the city council and everything what you think, whether you believe or not.
I think it's kind of a growing deal. Yeah. So I think you're going to learn more.
Yep.
You might find out that the policy that was created doesn't work.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. If you just create a policy, then it's going to be a blanket. So
it's got to be a growing or living document.
Yeah,
so you can adjust it and change because you're going to learn from each type of development. And that's kind of how what cities do.
That council you're talking about will be in place for even once the policy is put in place. You're going to keep that council around.
That's what I was asking.
I don't think it'd be like a one and done deal.
That's what
you might have some things arise that is totally out of what we've seen before. And might
so it'd be a running group of citizens.
More involvement from them, But I think it's great for the community because now you're getting community involvement in your programs. And I think that's what we need to do.
On the same thoughts, give us your thoughts on the project that backed out at Norfolk Avenue and First Street. Just real fast. You don't have to get too in depth, but however in depth you want to.
Sure, it was unfortunate because we really didn't get a chance to get to the nuts and bolts of the project. They just kind of walked and didn't get a chance to come forward and really present. They started presenting, but then they kind of felt like the environment was too hostile for them or whatever, and they didn't want to come forward anymore. They was like, "We're done. We'll go to where we're working at other towns and not be in Norfolk." You can say what you want to say about it, but that alcohol building's been there a long time with no development. I don't think they've had They've had some interested parties in that project, but in the last 12 years, it hasn't been a significant amount. So when you have somebody looking at that, and then what you really have to weigh out when you're looking at TIF is what is it going to provide back to the community? So if, for the instance, this particular development would have generated growth through sales tax, and the property tax would have been I think it was like 154,000 a year in sales, and but then it got shot down, and now we're collecting $5,000, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 a year in property taxes. So you lost all that, and you really didn't get a chance to go through the nuts and bolts. I mean, I understand people are like, well, I don't understand how they're going to develop it like this. I don't like the picture or whatnot, but that never got discussed. It just kind of got. So it'd be nice to see him come back and really meet with them and see what they want to do. I mean, now you got Johnson Park sitting there, and I don't, it'd be nice to see that property redeveloped. I know that parking became a major concern for downtown businesses, and citizens were worried about it.
Yeah.
This goes in there, where are we going to park? And so we did try to address some of that with working with the hospital who owns the ground right across where the old Pringers was, working with Hy-Vee, because Hy-Vee's got a lot of parking up front that they never utilize. And so there might have been opportunities for some.
Hospital owns the Pringers ground there? Mm-hmm. Oh, I just assumed that Hy-Vee bought it.
I figured that too.
They own that there. Well, you can just get on Madison County GIS and check it out.
I don't go look at that stuff. But yeah, no, that's news to me.
But that was just, you've got some stalls you could put there. There might be some opportunity there. But then you have to form partnerships to do that. And so the next time a developer comes in, I think instead of getting boom right out front like this, let's talk about the problems that you could create. Parking could be one of them. Well, how are we going to solve parking? And then work through that process and the parking before you get out too far ahead of yourself, because all of a sudden,
to me, the project seemed like it got a little over its skis just right away.
It came out, it came out
out there too fast, too hard.
I can agree, and I think they would say the same thing. Like they wish they would have maybe had some community involved, like group or sessions where people
Like
could come
survey
in
type things.
and look at their project, give them input. And I think that would have helped because, like I said, the first thing that popped up from everyone was parking. And then it was the TIF, and then it was the project.
Right.
So I think you just got to cover your bases, because everybody wants to see something happen there, I think.
Yeah.
So
I would agree. Just depending on what it is, obviously.
Right.
And everybody will say that.
We just don't want people running away from our town,
Right. Still on the same subject, what are your thoughts on the proposed complex west of town, sports complex?
Well, right now it's up in the air.
It's stalled out.
Yeah, it's stalled out. They had to go in front of the auditors and make sure that they had the people. So they're on their end. They've got to do a lot of stuff to get that thing through and up in front of the people again. So it's. I don't know if we need to waste much time until
we don't have to. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on it in general.
Again, you got to look at it like, what is it? What's it going to? Because
what's it going to provide? Yeah.
As a mayor, you look at our budget, and our budget is primarily funded through sales tax. And so if things are going to generate a tremendous amount of sales tax, that helps your community with property taxes. Mm-hmm. So any project that comes up that has potential to generate sales tax, you automatically, as a city council or a mayor, you kind of have to take note and make a decision on how that's going to work.
Right. Agreed. Going to property taxes, while I know that the mayor does not have much, if any, decision power on property tax, do you have any insight into ways to help the people of Norfolk with the issue? You already just mentioned sales taxes or anything else that the mayor might have.
Yeah, you've got to make sure you're pro-growth. You've got to make sure that you're open to the idea of people coming to town and building businesses and continuing to grow. Because like I said, sales tax is basically, it makes up 40% of our budget. And 15 years ago, it was 60% of the budget. So as you don't want to see that needle creep the other way, you want to see it go the other way. So when our mall was having some issues and came in, they generate a lot of sales tax with the community. And that's what you have to remember is it's important. And it's also important that you create an environment where you're open for business, right? And if you don't, you're just going to push us the other way and put more pressure on that property tax.
What's your, just to play a little devil's advocate or whatever, some people hear that and just say, well, we get the budget's all sales tax, but do you balance that with maybe we don't keep growing our budget? We still have to keep cutting our budget even with the sales tax and growth, and balancing that. What's your best way to balance that?
Well,
how's that balancing act? Like, because I hear we're open for business and growth a lot.
Yeah.
Like, how do you balance, stop spending?
Well, that's what I was trying to do with the way I'm explaining the budget.
Yeah.
But the other thing is too, we have a fire department, police department that are built to serve a bigger population base than we have now.
Okay.
So that's a good thing.
Yep.
So they are already at a point where they could serve a bigger population.
And that's your infrastructure side, which you have to grow.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so that's a good thing for our community because your police and fire, they make a big portion of the budget. And you got to be protected and you got to have fire prevention. So I think we have some things in place that are positive when it comes to that. So, moving forward, to answer your question, I think we just revert back to what I talked about earlier. And
I was just saying it because I know some people hear that and they just immediately recoil and just, we're just talking about sales tax. And
the thing is, I could sit here all night and go, I'm going to do this, but it's all political speech.
I know.
So what I'm trying to do at the top of the meat or of our conversation.
Yeah.
I was trying to go into that presentation of what we're doing with the budget. I think that is the key.
Yep.
And that'll answer a lot of those questions you have. And then people that are saying, well, you can promise everything you want, but what I'm trying to do isn't a promise, it's an action or a solution.
Yep.
And that solution I think will help moving things forward.
It's got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
how do you plan to maintain transparency and engage with citizens regularly, especially those who might feel disconnected from local government?
Well, transparency, I believe, again,
back to the
with
budget.
the budget, what we're creating is going to be a lot more transparent and a lot more easy to digest and understand. So that's one. But with citizen involvement, I've already kind of talked about that citizen advisory groups, reaching out to the community. And then we didn't really get into this yet, but that balance of power thing I've been talking about for a long time with the mayor and the council. What that'll do is that's going to bring more community involvement in also because it's not going to be a mayor-heavy pushed agenda. It's going to come more from the community. And
Which we talked about that a lot on your first podcast.
Right. So those are some things, like I said, those are kind of solutions. I can promise anything.
Right.
But those to me are things that can actually bring more community involvement and community projects. So if a portion of our community really wants to improve Taha, for instance, or the ball field, that community involvement would bring that forward. It wouldn't be city staff saying, we want to do this.
Right.
It's going to come from the community to us and not from us to the community.
That's a good way to look at it.
Right.
What are your plans? I mean, you talk about being open for business and attracting new industry. What are your plans to attract new businesses and industries to town?
Well, we have been. So if we keep doing what we're doing, I mean, earlier I was looking up from 18 till now, there's been about $500 million of investment in commercial and industry in the city of Norfolk. Now, when wasn't that long ago, we were having economic development summit committees every month. And when I first got on council, we probably had them 3 or 4 times a year. So we've amped it up, and we have where people are actually coming to Norfolk instead of us having to go out and find them. So we're having businesses coming to us. I mean, the crush plant came here looking for it to grow here. So those are some examples, but I feel like if we can keep on the path that we're going on now and listen to the citizens of Norfolk who are up, I wouldn't say they're upset about that path. They're just upset because it looks like it's push, and not listen to anything anybody's saying. But if we can keep moving forward economic development with our industry, we will see some positive changes. We've already seen it. The population growth and from 18 or 16 and now, I think we
can get into that now if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about it now. It's all relevant.
You want to talk about these multipliers first, or that you talked about first?
Yeah, we can go into that too. But the population growth is. I mean, we've got about 1,800 people. I know if you look at it with the annexation, a portion of that, 700 or so, were annexation, but 1,000, we were like one of the fastest growing communities outside Omaha and South Sioux City, and we went from 8th in the state back to 7th in the state. So I think if we can keep moving forward, business will come here if we have employees here. The old model used to be in economic development, and I heard this from it wasn't me who said it's the state economic development director. He stated, cheap labor, cheap ground, economic development will come here. Well, that's not the case anymore in Nebraska. It's not cheap labor, it's not cheap ground anymore. So now it's recruitment and bringing in people. And if you've got housing here, which we've been doing, and you've got the employees here, they'll come here, and because they know they've got a great place and great work ethic here, and people, so it's a good place to build your business. But so,
because you had said something about however many one industry job could bring, or helps out.
If you zoom down
scroll down
a ways. This is what I found interesting. So, last few weeks I've got a chance to tour Nucor, and I got a chance to tour Norfolk Iron and Metal. I don't know if it's up there. I don't see it up there.
I don't know.
There's a chart.
Go up a little bit.
That right there, that one. Stay at that one. So anyway, when I was out there, I was, first of all, I don't know, have you guys ever been through Nucor?
I have not.
Bits and pieces of it.
It'll blow you away. You see the amount of volume of product coming in, the amount of volume of product going out, and you get to walk around and talk. I got a chance to talk to some management, got a chance to walk the floor and talk to some guys, and it was an awesome tour. And then I got to go out to Norfolk Continental and take a tour. And that is, the addition they did out there is unbelievable. And between the two of them, there's there's almost around 1,300 employees. And so now you go down and you look at that chart right there, and look what it says for manufacturing. Job multiplier by sector in the United States. Manufacturing says 9. So one manufacturing job affects 9 other jobs in your community.
That's crazy to even think about.
Right. It is kind of nuts. So what they're saying is that means on the average, that the additional of one job in one of that sectors will result in the creation of at least 9 jobs total in your economy. So, and that's not just Norfolk. That's a region because not everybody lives here, but in northeast Nebraska. So you're talking about like 11,000, over 11,000 people are affected by just those 2 employers alone. And we've got more business in town than just that, but
right.
So yeah,
it is. I just wanted to bring that up because you had said something about it. So
right.
Then you want to talk about the major employers in Norfolk too?
We've got I mean,
go to the next tab, Yosh. So we got Tyson and Madison.
Yeah, Faith
Norfolk
Regional.
Continental has 201.
But then if you look at some of those, you go back to that chart, but you can see that each one of those directly affect the the additional jobs differently.
Right.
Manufacturing jobs affected differently than healthcare does.
Right.
And as far as like even Norfolk Public Schools,
because you said that number was kind of crazy. 697 at Norfolk Public Schools.
yeah, it's not what it says. 697.
697,
That's
yeah.
The city of Norfolk employs 215 people. I guess what we're getting at here is it's important how you treat business and how business does things. I had an interesting talk. I was actually talking to Dirk Peterson. He used to run the Volcraft or Nucor out here, and I mentioned this to him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, Shane, yeah." That's when we started talking about when I had an opportunity to create the detailing center. I jumped on top of that so fast 'cause I knew the implications of creating more jobs like that, what that could do to our community, and I was kind of blown away by that because this is kind of the first time I've ever, researched some of this stuff and looked for some of these things because I was actually just preparing for the debate. Kind of what I was going to say, and this is when I came across some of this stuff. So it kind of blew me away about not only do you need to recruit new business, but you really need to take care of the business you have here already.
Right.
And make sure that they're performing properly. And what their main concern is, it was housing.
Right.
And having new employees here. So we went after and we tackled housing. From 16 till now, there's been 1,100 housing units built. From 6, so that's a lot compared to the years beforehand.
Right.
You can go back and look through, and if you look at the building permits from 18 till now, permits pulled over 50,000. It adds up to about $819 million has been invested back in the community housing over the last few years. So what's that telling you? Then you look at 1,100 units. And then if you take out the annexation and what the population grew, that's about 1,000. So they go hand in hand, and then that's job growth, that's population growth, that's how you take the pressure off the taxpayer. Just continue to do those things.
Do you think with the housing prices kind of at a high during that time too, though, kind of caused some of the maybe people thinking that there wasn't housing available for certain demographics?
Oh, that's true. There's. I mean, people are renting now longer than they ever have in the in the history of the United States. I mean, it's getting rough. I mean, we were talking. 250,000 used to be a really nice home, and now they're talking workforce housing 320,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's what they qualify it at.
Right.
Workforce housing. Well, 250,000 with 20% down, you got to make $70,000 a year to qualify for that house. With a down payment.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've got to a lot of things to tackle when it comes to
And that's
affordable.
not just Norfolk. That's everywhere.
And then when your interest rates go up on top of that, that knocks out a lot more people.
Right.
And so that is something we'll have to focus on moving forward on how do we actually have affordable housing, not just what they call workforce housing.
Right.
So we'll be working on that. I've got some ideas for that we could do. I think a lot of that is going to be into redeveloping or I guess you say remodeling existing homes that are not dilapidated, but where they're at a point where they're in the price range, but they need a lot of work. And what happens to somebody when they go into that, say I'm a young guy and I can afford the house at $180,000, but it needs $40,000 worth of upgrades. So I buy the house at $180,000. I can't get the loan for $40,000. I can't get a secondary loan for $40,000.
Right.
Yeah.
But I might be able to get a $220,000 loan if the house is totally improved.
Right.
So if you can have encourage developers or encourage people to go in and fix those houses up and then put them on the market at a fair price, you could start going back to where you have that $250,000 price home that's going to hit more demographic than a $320,000 home would.
Right. I would agree with that.
So,
How do you incentivize developers to do that?
well, they've got what's called micro TIF.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
Touched on it when we had
We
you
haven't.
on.
Nobody's been using it, but that's an option. You can use that. You can just that one house can get that TIF bond to help improve it, and then that TIF bond is then transferable to the new owner. It can transfer to that new owner, which would help with it could give them some borrowing power to buy
Right.
the home. So that to me is an option. One option that's kind of out there, but the Norfolk Housing Authority has some options. They got the land bank they've been working on really hard right now, and so I think we're putting some things together, but it's going to take time.
Right.
It's new ideas and fresh ideas to how to do it.
Moving on a little bit, I have had many younger people in the area come up and ask me a lot of questions about the candidates. I try to give my best answers that I can with my knowledge. A lot of them do not drink as much as other generations. Most of the time, their question is, how do you plan to keep young people here in the area or bring more in because they feel the town pushes them out if they're not maybe into drinking or things like that? So this isn't a question for me. This is more of a few of the younger people that I know.
When you're talking to them, what do they feel about the parks and rec? And because I would think that they'd be more into parks, rec.
I brought that up, and I knew that's probably what you were going to say, but I told the person that I would ask this question.
They're more into not the Parks and Rec. They want social
like your-
gatherings. It's not a bar, is what they're wanting. Basically,
Things like like the indoor putt in Omaha. I'm just giving examples as the things that they would have said. We've got, I think we got the escape room, so that can't be something. But things of that nature.
Sure.
Right.
Well, if there's a market for it,
Right.
somebody will do it.
That's
You know,
That's kind of what I told them, and I figured this was going to be your answer. But
Yeah.
So not the greatest question in the world, but
But I mean, you got to understand where they're coming from. I get it, because you go downtown, what are you doing? You're going having fun.
Yeah.
But with the, and if you're not an outdoor person, maybe especially because then you're not appealed to the parks and the walking trails and the cowboy trail.
Yep.
That really doesn't do much for you. So I guess if they're into like indoor golf, indoor putt golf.
then it comes down to somebody wanting to invest.
There's hit 'em up downtown.
Yep.
That's one thing that's pretty neat. You can go in there and golf simulators, indoor golf simulators. So
It's behind fenders there.
yeah, that's an option there too. And so I guess you just got to get creative.
And you got to get somebody willing to put in the financial side
Right.
of it to open something like that. And if
That's the thing. Like Norfolk,
and then you have to have the community buy-in when people
Right.
talk about it, and then they don't want to go do
because
it.
you're just on the cusp of the population base. You need to do an indoor facility. Like, how cool would it be to have an indoor go-kart track?
right, and that'd be something that
But then if I go, am I going to go once a year, twice a year?
Right.
So in Omaha, you can do those sort of things. The population base is big enough to control it. Like here in Norfolk, if we all just went a couple times a year and
You'd never make it.
You never make it.
Yeah.
You close down.
Whereas Omaha, every person could go once a year or once every 2 years,
Right.
and they're going to
Yeah,
make it.
You'd have
and that's kind of what I got at with them too. But
There was
I wanted to hear your
that
take.
facility a while back that was looking at the old cell barn.
I remember that.
And so there was an option there, and I've heard that they're still out there.
Still trying to get the funding.
Right. So if that happened, that would totally.
But again, it comes down to somebody's got to be willing to put the money in.
Put the money
like no
in,
matter
yeah.
what. I mean,
whether there's TIF or not, it's got to
and
be
I don't
somebody
want the city to do it because I don't want
Right.
the city spending money. That's
Right.
just the way I'm diametrically opposed to stuff like that. So
and they would.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
'Cause
point.
you'd have to have more staff. You'd have to
Yeah,
so it'd be
no.
For the people who want change, right? They want to see a change of the guard or whatever. What are your plans to move Norfolk into the future that may differ from what was going on previously?
Well, I'm going to go back to the two things. Well, this leads perfectly into the balance of power, and that's what I've been working on. I'm getting some traction now. I wasn't getting some traction, but we have found some things that we can do for staff to help them feel a little more protected, and how we appoint and not appoint, and how we appoint people to different positions, how that's going to work moving forward. But I truly feel if the council is not just working on and everything's being pushed by the mayor, and you can elevate your council to work together kind of more as a community, I think that's going to be able to help with that. That's how I feel we can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, well, I can do that by doing this. I can do this is actual just a policy. It's a solution to move that way.
Right. It makes sense. Kind of one of the last questions I have, what do you believe sets you apart from the other candidate?
I think just the solutions I've been talking about tonight. I mean, that's probably, I'm focusing on just a few things that I think we can do a lot of things with. Everything I talk about addresses, a bunch of different things. And if we can do that, you're talking, I'm addressing budget. I'm addressing future generations. I'm addressing how the community involvement within Norfolk is. And we're addressing housing at the same time. So we're addressing a lot of similar things, but I'm trying to provide some solutions that we can get to do those things with.
Right.
Because otherwise, what do you have? If you can't create a policy as a mayor, you don't have the votes. So even now, if I create these policies and I don't have the votes, but I'm working in a way where I believe. I mean, how many mayors do you have come to you that say, I want to reduce the power of the mayor?
Not too many.
No. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I want to balance this power out and make sure I want more community involvement. I really do. And I want more council involvement in things. And so that's what I'm working for. But I think we can get there. I really do. And I've got some traction right now. So
it's good. And then it's good to hear that the changes can happen. We're talking about that. People want change. Well, here you go.
Right.
You wanted to talk a little bit about the senior center.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've been working with them. So here's the thing. We've worked really hard on recruitment and retention of the young demographic of our community over the last few years. And we really haven't been working on what about the retirement community, and where are they at with things? And so I think moving forward, what I'd like to see happen is we kind of balance that out. You can't be a great community to come live in and raise a family, but also a great community to retire. I'm knocking on 50 now, so I'm thinking about those things.
That and beyond that, I mean, there's been people that have made Norfolk what Norfolk is.
Yeah, they built the community,
living here, and they have the pride of the community,
right?
And they feel like they're left out because the only thing anybody cares about is young people,
right?
Like, we got to worry about the young people. Well, what about the people that have done it?
The people that built it,
50 years, 60 years,
got us to where we're at.
Yeah,
and then handed it off and said, "We did a good job. Don't mess it up."
Yeah,
right. So yeah, I've been trying to work with what's happening there is that their budget is just not quite working out properly, and they're struggling a little bit. And great people, they got a great board, they got good staff there. They've got a lot of good things going on, but they provide like 150 Meals on Wheels a day, and that's a lot of people affected, not only by the meal but the social interaction they get with those people. And if that goes away, that'll be devastating for our community. So last few years, we've given money to them to help supplement their budget. But that can all go. If you could just go year by year by year, that's hard. That's hard for them to create a budget, not knowing where the council is going to vote on that, because not every council is going to be in favor of that.
Yeah, right.
And you get new people on and new people off, and all of a sudden that ends, and you're backwards. That wouldn't be good. So we need to figure out some sort of partnership with them, and I don't know how that looks, but there are other communities that have done that. But a partnership in a way that they still maintain their own individual status, but maybe the city has some help in keeping that part of our community, because I'm afraid it could go away.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to work for.
Would there be any interest in maybe getting local investors too?
I think
some of the local businesses.
With parks, we've talked about grants, partnership, and fundraising, and donations. That's how our parks are being built. Right. That's how I want to see that happen. So, same situation: grants, donation, and partnerships. And so if we can do that with the senior center, I think we can get them to help. And that's what they need. They need city involvement to qualify for certain grants.
Right. And not just city, not the mayor, not the council, actual citizens.
Citizens involvement and city involvement. Because once you have city involvement, then there's grants out there that open up that could help you maybe remodel your facility or change some things in your facility and create more programs, And so, and I think if more people out there knew what the senior center provides, I think there'd be more people that would get involved. Like my mom, for instance, she really didn't know much about this, and I had gone senior center, and I had gone to to go talk to them one time, kind of see what was. This was early on when they kind of reached out and said, "Hey, we're having some issues. Can you stop out here?" I'm like, "Sure, I'll stop out." I'm like, "Wow, this is really nice." And so I told my mom about it because that night I met with them. They were having a Halloween dance that night, and I saw the decorations they're putting up. And I go, "My mom would love this." And then so she did go out, and then lo and behold, she got involved. Now she's on the board there, and so yeah, it's interesting.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Is there any other final remarks that you'd like to give before we move into the listener question portion?
I just feel like when you're looking at a mayor, you got to look at who's going to be your ambassador for your community, because you're not really a voting member anymore. You are the ambassador. You're kind of the face of the community when businesses come in, when you meet with new entities that are coming here to either develop or move into your community. And so, what message are you going to carry forth from there? And so my message is just, like I said earlier, want to stay open for business and want to provide solutions, and that's what I really would like to see our community. We've got a lot of division right now, and that's unfortunate because that doesn't help you at all. And so I really would like to sit down and listen. I don't have to be right on everything. You know what I'm saying? I can take your advice.
I have to be, so I don't know what your problem is over there.
I just learned that a long time ago. But you got to sometimes put yourself in the other person's shoes and find out how they're feeling and where they're coming from things. If you can do that, I think we can provide those solutions and start bringing this community back together is what we need to do in order to move forward.
Well, it sounds like you got a pretty good plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty solid, and you've talked immensely on it, so.
Right. Probably repeated myself a dozen times, I
That's
suppose.
all right.
I don't know.
That's all right. So everybody out there, stick around. We're going to do some listener questions here. Give us like about 5 minutes. Put your questions in the chat, and then we'll get to them here in about 5 minutes. See you in a few. This episode is brought to you by Box Drop Norfolk. Box Drop Norfolk carries the best quality mattresses and furniture at the lowest price. They get truckloads of new overstock couches and mattresses at a great price and pass the savings on to you. They are a family-owned and operated business. Nate, Rebecca, and daughter Natalie keep their overheads low so they can price these all below retail. The mattresses and furniture are all new and come in limited quantities. Selection may vary. Message them on Facebook. Come check them out. Save some money. Mention you heard about them from this podcast episode. Drop the name Touching Base. Get an extra $30 off. All right. We're back. Want to take a little bit, give you guys a chance to put some questions in the chat for Shane. Hope you guys enjoyed our portion of the show. Let's get to Vaughn Marie's question is one of the first ones. How will you help with the need for affordable housing in Norfolk? The multiple apartment buildings being built are for incoming college students and not to families looking for affordable housing. How is a college student that is only residing for a year going to help grow our town and future when you have a whole generation of kids already growing up here that will need homes to live in?
So basically asking, what about the families? Is that what?
Yeah, basically housing, like actual homes instead of apartment buildings.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, basically is what the question was.
An affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
For younger people that
So that's
live
what
here.
I mentioned that earlier. I feel like redevelopment of some of our older neighborhoods, because the bones in those buildings are there. The bones are there, and so you've got a decent priced home, but the problem is they're not fixed up. Mm-hmm. And so in order to fix those up, you have to find developers who will do that. And I think that if we can use some of those, use either grants that we could, there are grant writing capabilities we have that we can go out and try to get grants to do that. Mm-hmm. And that'd be an opportunity there. And if you can't do grants, then you have that micro TIF. But I really feel like if we can hone in on some of those areas that need to be redeveloped, we can find a way to produce housing that's less than that 320,000 that they call first workforce housing.
Yeah, I think that micro tip would be a good idea. We talked about that during your previous podcast, and we should have touched on it more. But Just interesting it's not being utilized not only here, but
Well,
kind of throughout the
right
state.
now,
Right?
right now it doesn't work because of the way we do our blight and substandard.
Gotcha.
So like when we do our blights, they want to blanket like a huge area.
Right.
And I've always wondered why do we have to blanket this huge? Why can't we just focus in on?
Because you could do just like one lot, right?
Right. That's what. But you'd have to get one lot, do 2 lots, and so I think there's a little bit of a learning curve there for staff and
Like
how that's going
red
to work.
tape and
Right,
paperwork type
right,
of thing.
Right. How that's going to work moving forward. But I know in the debate, both Jim and I were on the same page with it.
Right.
We were both like, this could be, and he's looked into it. So but this would be an area where I think we could help address. Was it?
Vaughn Marie.
Oh yeah, address some of her questions. And the one thing I've talked to some of she's talking about apartment rates, right? Mm-hmm. Our vacancy rate is very low in Norfolk, and when vacancy rates are low, and I had a apartment developer tell me this because our vacancy rates are too low. We need to have a bigger vacancy rate. We got to get up over 8% because as soon as it gets up over 8%, then apartment rates drop. And he was fine with that. He's like, we need a competitive market.
Right.
Right now, we don't have a competitive market, so we have all the apartments are getting filled up so quick.
Because they're full.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Vaughn Marie, I hope that answered your question. We're going to move on to Chad Hazelton. He says, comparing apples to apples, Norfolk always gets compared to Columbus. Do you have any plans to bring more manufacturing companies into Norfolk, or do you think small businesses and restaurants are the way to go? Norfolk Crush is a huge opportunity for Norfolk.
Right. Well, I think if you just look up that page you have sitting up there, how many manufacturing jobs we actually have.
Yep.
But Norfolk was built off service industry. That's just what it was. It was built off. We're the place you wanted to go shop. Columbus was not the place you wanted to go shop. So Norfolk was actually, our budgets are totally different. Norfolk's budget was built off the luxury of sales tax. So what happened there was we were able to create institutions like a fire department and police department that are different than what Columbus has now. We have a fully staffed fire department. A lot of the cities our size have volunteer fire department on their staff. We don't. And so we do spend a lot more money than Columbus does on fire and police. But the only reason we were able to do that is because we were a sales tax heavy community, where Columbus would have had to build all that through property taxes. And when you have to depend on property taxes, you just don't have the luxury to do that. And so we've been fortunate over the years to be able to do that. So in order to maintain that, we have to keep going that route. Am I kind of missing the question here, you think?
No, you're answering it.
So, but I feel like we do need to focus on what we have here, like we talked about earlier. We really do need to focus on the businesses we have here because of the influence they have on our population. When when one job per manufacturing influences 9 other jobs, because that's me. I'm a contractor. I'm in construction, so I'm essentially a service industry. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those guys out there and on Industrial Road out there, and even like you look at like Marathon Press, for instance. Nice company, nobody really knows about. Sitting there, employ a lot of people. I've walked through that place, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
they've got office staff here, and they've got people in the back printing. We've got a lot of little nuggets like that throughout Norfolk. So we do have some real good businesses here. Can we attract a major player here again? I don't know, because it's so competitive across the country. You're competing against everybody.
yeah.
But can we entice the businesses that are here to make improvements to grow? Well, guess who did? Norfolk Metal just did. They made a huge investment into their plant here and their office staff here and what they do and their production. I would encourage you, if you could, if you get a chance sometime, see if you can you should see that, and that's all that's going to do is recruit new people into that business, make sure they've got, people that want to work there. And it was amazing. So we have people doing that, but I think if we can't stifle that, is what I'm getting at. You can't stifle that want for people to want to improve in our community. You got to work with them,
Right.
and not have them scared of you to come in and ask the question.
Yeah. Next one is from Colin Glazer or Glasser.
Glazer. Yeah.
Colin Glazer.
Coach him in football.
Oh, nice. What will Shane do to provide opportunities for affordable housing in Norfolk? Talked about that one already.
We talked about it already.
Yep.
Colin's a good guy.
Good.
I've known him for a long time. But yeah, he good question, Colin. And essentially what we were talking about earlier. We've got to come up with some new ideas because the old ideas aren't working. And that's why we're kind of talking about looking for different type of grants. We've got the land bank going through the housing authority. That just got kind of big this year. And then, I really feel like redevelopment of the older areas in town. I think that's a tremendous opportunity and you're seeing in some of your, you look at some of your bigger communities, you're seeing some of that already, your urban areas where they're redeveloping areas. And,
Right.
And so I feel like we could go in and I say we, but you'd have builders and developers where it makes sense. It makes sense to go in there and buy that home, fix it up, and get it at a price point where a larger demographic can afford it. Because it's funny, when I was like some of the houses that I've done here on the custom side, less than 1% of the population can actually afford that type. But the more you go down on the price range, you kind of capture more of the people that can afford housing. And it's frustrating now for guys like Colin's age because they're looking at high interest rate and they're looking at a price range that's like out there. And how do I afford that? And then on top of that, how am I putting 20% down on this?
Yeah.
My first house, what I did was I bought a lot. I went and applied for a construction loan, and they allowed me to use some of the sweat equity I was going to put into that house to build it.
Right.
You can't do that now. So.
And when we bought our first house, and we probably put, I don't know, 25 grand into it. So we were about 145 in. Yeah. That would probably go for 300 now, type of thing.
Right.
It's just crazy to think about how that was just 10 years ago.
I saw a house in a smaller town north of here, 1,200 square foot, 2-stall garage, $355,000.
Wow. That's just crazy. So something's got to give somewhere. And obviously that's on a national level too.
It is. It's all across the board.
It's on a national level. I have a hard time with that question. That question really bothers me actually a lot of times when people keep asking how are we going to bring in affordable housing, what blah blah blah. I know I feel bad for people. I'm in that situation, whatever. But anybody in that situation, I don't want the government dealing with that because it just creates a bigger problem.
Right.
Like if we're just saying, well, we need to subsidize stuff. We need to make it cheaper. We need to do this. We need to do that. So we need to find a way to do it without just giving away money because that's not free money. Like there's no such thing as just, affordable housing.
Right.
That's what gets frustrating to me as somebody that looks at it as housing is nothing more than it's a commodity base. So it's a supply and demand issue, right? I'm not going to go build something that's worth $500,000 if there isn't a demand for it, and so I'm going to sell it for $300,000 because I'm going to lose $200,000 right there. Right. So I understand where it's at, but I don't think that's a Norfolk issue. I think that's a societal issue, and I don't know. I don't like the concept of.
It's unfortunate because if I was in my 20s right now, I'd feel kind of hopeless about.
And I don't think that's a Norfolk problem.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's an issue here for housing. Right. Just if there was extra housing would come down.
What's actually scary about it is, are we moving into a rent-based society? Where
it's kind of what it seems like.
Well,
especially because you're seeing homes getting built, right? So obviously those people are moving out of homes most likely. And what are those getting sold, or is it
If you want a lot of affordable housing, you're going to have BlackRock and stuff like that come in, and they're going to build houses, and you're going to be renting it. That's what's going to happen.
Or they're buying the houses.
They're buying the houses, and they're going to rent it out for a cheaper price.
They're buying the houses for 10 to 15% more of asking.
Yeah.
And they're taking up the market by doing that. That's horrible too. They need to put a stop to that because
100%.
It's not fair for the average buyer.
No. Not at all.
Is that that something that you can keep investment firms like that, not just saying BlackRock, but investment firms out of a town? Could you do that as a mayor and city council? Say, hey, we're not going to allow inside investment is fine. We're not going to allow an investment firm to come out of town, out of state, out of whatever.
No, probably not.
It'd be tough. Only if it would involve they could turn down TIF. But
you could find a way to do it.
Sure, you could, but that'd be.
I think that's going to be a state or national. It's going to come to. Actually, it's got to start at national level. Our government needs to step in and go.
Well, they're part of it, so.
Yeah. But if you're a firm and you're buying thousands and thousands of homes through the same firm, how many do you need to own? And, you know, before you control the market, you know.
Yeah.
And so somehow it's got to come from the top down. And with local government, I mean, we're worried about streets, police, fire, you know, and water, you know.
That's kind of why I'm kind of backing you up on this.
Yeah, it's a little out of our realm.
That question is it's hard to deal with on the city level.
Yeah, definitely hard. Rob Merrill asked, do the citizens have a role to play in transparency?
It's a good question. I think what happens sometimes is citizens don't reach out to your councilman or your mayor, especially on council. You know, you could probably talk to every one of the council or persons out there, and they're not getting a lot of calls during the week, and they're not getting a lot of emails. And I feel like sometimes maybe as a citizen, that the phone numbers are there. If you're concerned about something, I'll be honest with you, when I get reached out to on an issue on council, like even if it's like 3 or 4 phone calls, it really makes me think, and it resonates with me on how that issue is going to fit. Yeah, so it's important to reach out, and if you have questions, ask. You know, that the city's agenda comes out like on Thursday, maybe. I think that you can see that I don't know when we get it on Thursday.
I can't remember when
I don't know when it's published. It's probably published on the city's website at a certain
It is. I just don't know when.
So we usually get on Thursday. But if you see something on that agenda and you don't like it, scroll over, find the person in your ward, and call that individual and talk to them about it. Because then they have to research it, and then they have to get back to you. And I think that is a way, just that level of communication would help with transparency.
I 100% agree.
And, so the other thing that I would, we talk about transparency. One thing I've kind of thought we could mull around with a little bit is when we have a really contested issue on the agenda coming up, to have a work session prior to the council meeting where you present the agenda in front of the full, there's no vote, there's really no communication on it, but there is a work session where you can float everything out there and people can kind of get grasp of it. And then it comes back in front of council on Monday. I think that would be a good, especially when you have a hot topic, like maybe that first in Norfolk Avenue.
Right.
If that would have an opportunity to come out and some of those questions and things could have come up, even though it's a non-voting meeting, then you would have an opportunity to, by Monday, you could address some of those situations. And then I feel like there could be some more transparency that way. So,
yeah, I would agree. Ryan Hofford asks, top 5 ideas you would like to see become reality for Norfolk.
I really don't have 5 ideas. I just have a few solutions. I think those few solutions will morph into 5 ideas because I don't like to see, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because ultimately you're just, we've all heard it before.
Just checking boxes.
You're checking boxes. Yeah. And so what I've tried to do with the budget, changing that, with the balance of power, working on that, with maybe, with transparency in our budget, and then creating outside citizens groups. With those few things we're doing, those will check a lot of those boxes moving down the list. And I think by working together and getting more community involvement by doing that, I think we can answer Ryan's question there.
I would agree. Colin has another question. Shane, when you look back at the end of your mayoral term, what would you be the most proud of accomplishing? So if you were elected.
Right. I've always been one to not look at what I accomplished, but what the people in the community accomplished while you were there.
Yeah.
And so it's really not me. It's more about what I saw people able to do. So I'd be more proud of what I saw people in our community accomplish. So like Colin went out and he started a business of his own. That's what I look back and be proud of. And because I was there to help get through the red tape, get government out of your way so you can succeed. And so those are the things. When I look at it, it's really not me. It's more about what people did in our community. So it's kind of how I always felt about it when I got in city government. I've been asked this question before when I was running for city council, and I had another councilman ask me, or the person that I was running against, tell me what you feel the most proud of right now. And I'm like, well, getting out of people's way so they could accomplish their goals and dreams in our community. And then looking back at it and saying, yeah, we were able to provide an avenue for that to happen, right. Or the crush plant to get here. Because you look at the crush plant would be here if a few years ago we wouldn't use LB 840 funds to put the gas line in. So yeah, you got to be extremely proud that we put that gas line in, but then you got to sit back and go, well, that went in, and then you had an investor come into town and believed in Norfolk and put a big plan up like that, and then it brought the ethanol plant that now is producing spirits too. So you get that going with it. So I guess all in all, it's more about what your community is accomplishing around you because you're not in their way. Or you're providing the opportunities for them to have that.
So you're not looking for the accolades. You truly want the city to do better.
Right.
I'm gonna bounce off that a little bit and then kind of reword his question for something I want to know. And maybe you're not going to answer. Maybe you're going to give me that same answer, and it's fine. So you have your solutions, right?
Right.
What would you constitute a success, and what would you think that I failed at? Like if you got them all, ideally, like if your solutions made it through, and you think, wish in one hand and in the other, we'll see what it is. But
so
what would you consider a success, and what would you consider, hey, I maybe kick the pooch here?
If we can continue in the same direction we're going right now, hold on, so take a drink of water.
You're good. You are. I was sick too, so you can go ahead and cough.
You can cough.
We've coughed in there.
So anyway, what would I consider a success and a failure? Okay, so you've seen what's going on right now. We talked about the 1,100 housing units that have been produced.
Yep.
Talked about the population base growing. We talked about the investment in our community with the business sector, and then we've seen what we've done with parks. Now, I think parks are probably at a point where they're, you're not going to see something. You're never going to see a Johnson Park again. So that's obviously not going to be something I'm going to have on my resume. But if I can see the senior center take off and thrive, if I can continue to see the numbers still go as they're going as they are right now, and I didn't put a roadblock in to stop that. So if I can look back in 4 years and go, we did get those other 360 houses we need put up so that we can, in 2026, we can continue on our population growth phase. So it's more about just seeing Norfolk continue to stay on the same path that it's going. I can't name a certain project because you never know. You never know if First Norfolk Avenue will come back. You don't know what you might.
I wasn't really talking as a project as much to like your solutions.
That's how to gauge it. So it's like say that budget I put together, or the budget process I'm working on. If you get your budget exactly how you want it, do you consider that a success? Because I think that everything else is going to come after that. I think so, if it produces like I think it will.
Okay.
Right.
That's kind of I'm drilling you down on this. I've
been harping on this budget thing, but what people have to realize is that even if we are successful with your property taxes, the city's influence on your property taxes is kind of minimal.
Yeah.
So
I understand that.
It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, I just got this huge gain.
You're not even looking at thousands of dollars.
No, property tax got to start at the state level. You got the other guys out there. You got Governor Pillen pushing out there. Something will happen with property taxes going down the road. But as far as the city goes, if we can stay fiscally conservative and still provide the resources people need for protection,
you'll never lower taxes if you're not stopping lowering spending at the lowest level up. Like you can't just you can't lower spending from top down. It's got to go from bottom up. So that's why I kind of was just kind of wanted to get the right answer out of you. My answer.
Dylan Field asks, what is Norfolk's biggest need right now, and how do you plan to fill that need?
I guess if you look at, what do you want to look at, economic development maybe?
What do you think is Norfolk's biggest need, I guess, in your mind?
Well, there's a lot of different needs because I'm a small-time builder. I'm a family-owned construction company. I work with my brothers, and there's just not a lot of young people going into the trades right now, and that's a problem for my industry.
Right.
And fortunately, we have a college here that is trying to fix that.
Right.
And so we need to work with the college moving forward so we can influence more young people to join the trade industry because it's a good industry to be in.
Agreed.
But
we're big proponents of the trades here.
So go back to that question just again and let's.
I
got off track.
What is Norfolk's biggest need right now, and how do you plan to fill that need?
Well, we just talked about the construction industry, but I think it's across the board on finding people that want to work in our community, and that's a big problem because your major employers, if they can't find resources that, because you've got a lot of people who are retiring, can we fill those positions? And with the generation just above my generation, there's going to be a lot of retirement coming out of that community here in the next few years. So we have to be able to fill that. So how do you do that? One, you have to have affordable housing, which we've been talking about all night. Mm-hmm. And the jobs are there. They're good paying jobs. They really are. I mean, benefit, you get benefit, I mean, there's just a lot of good, there's some good pluses out there. But if we can't fill those jobs, then that industry goes, oh, there's a plan expansion scheduled within our with one of our branches. Are we going to do it in Norfolk, Virginia? Or are we going to do it in Norfolk, Nebraska?
Right.
And so all of a sudden they pick the other one, and then we lose out. So that's probably our biggest thing right now is facing us, is being able to supply the outgoing, the people that are retiring right now. And
you said unemployment was low, right? In
yeah,
Norfolk?
2.6.
And
what's the national level at?
you look up national unemployment average.
And we have 899 job openings.
That's what you said.
Yeah, that's
And it's just crazy how all you hear is, we can't find help. We can't find help.
Yeah.
4.1.
So yeah, we're at 2.6. So
Okay, so we're below the.
And when you're at 2.6, the 2.6 are basically people that don't want to find work.
Right.
That's
We talk about those kind of people all the time.
Yeah.
Next question is from Steve Alder. What is your long-term vision for economic development in Norfolk, and how do you plan to achieve this vision?
Well, it starts with the TIF Council. I mean, it starts there,
Yep.
and then it starts with so that if you want to be blunt about it, of those 1,100 housing units that got put up, I think like 960 of them use TIF, and so you can't just end it, but you have to find a happy medium between both parties. And if that goes away, then we would have some problems. But you also have to make sure that your community and your staff are receptive to, not so much community, but your staff is receptive to new business coming in and new ideas. Because there's been a lot of times in the past where something may come up and it may not be, you're not very receptive to it, and then they don't look to come here. And so you have to be an attractive community, which we've done. You have to be able to recruit people to your community, which has been done. So we're on a good playing field right now for Norfolk to continue to grow and move forward. So we just got to continue to keep doing that, and maybe find some ways. Like the biggest problem we're talking about tonight is affordable housing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that ultimately is going to kill economic development if you can't figure out a way to produce affordable housing.
Yeah.
So
I think and the affordable housing is also on the other side too. Is that there was people that were coming in that maybe wanted to buy a more expensive house, and those people weren't leaving either. So there was you have your people coming in these industries that do make a little more money and can afford a more expensive house, but then those aren't available either. It's like, where are we missing the? I don't know. We're gonna keep probably going back to housing all night, but that's all right.
I know.
Another question from Colin. The state of Nebraska listed Norfolk as a potential feasible site for small modular nuclear reactors. What will you do to try to bring this industry to Norfolk?
I did recently hear about that. Have
I
you
had
guys
not
heard
heard
about
that
that?
I'm all for it. I haven't heard about it, but I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
It's the only true clean energy ever of all.
I think it's a matter of keeping your doors open to see what, and let them come to you and get the opportunity to learn and educate. Because right off the bat, you're going to have people saying, "Not in my back door," and so how does that work moving forward, or how's that look? So you just got to have an economic development crew that is willing to talk and look that processes through. But I would not be somebody to be like, absolutely not. I'd want to learn and gather information on how that looks for your community moving forward.
Makes sense. Those are all the questions so far. I'll give you guys a couple more minutes here. All you people that are out there watching, if you have any questions for Shane, now's your time, because we will probably come close to ending the episode here in about 10 minutes. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat now.
Do we want to talk about the police station all night? We haven't really touched on that.
If you'd like to, yeah.
What's going to go on the ballot, or
We can talk about it if you want
go
to.
ahead.
yeah. So we already talked about it, but I recently was endorsed by the Norfolk Fraternal.
Oh, I was going to mention that
yeah.
before we ended the other part. I apologize.
But that's fine. I just want to put a shout out to those guys because if you they've got a Facebook page, go on there and like it. They really want to get their grow their community, like their profile, and know they want to have community involvement and be big part. Just really want to be a big part of a community. But when it comes to police station, we've talked about. Maybe we talked about the last podcast. I'm sure we did.
We had
the idea or the solution hadn't been made yet.
Okay,
the solution hadn't been made with
this
yours.
came to us from an advisory committee.
Yep.
That's
The
right.
committee was on.
I was telling you my thoughts on what I think we could do.
Yep.
That's right.
The committee had already been convened or whatever when we had talked.
So the way that looks, what's going to go on the ballot will be a 0.5 sales tax increase, and that'd bring in about $400,000 per year, $4 million per year over 4 years, so $16 million. The project right now is projected to be $10.5 million. It's probably going to be more than that, and the sales tax product is probably going to be more than that also. It's probably going to be closer to 16, and the project will be closer to 12 when it all boils down to it. And then the addition, so that'll sunset at 4 years. The additional funds collected. So if it's say it's a $12 million project and $6 million comes in, you got $4 million left. Those additional funds before sunset will go into roads. That's the plan. So but like I said, it's
already earmarked, or it's going to go to a slush fund
No, it'll be earmarked for roads
on the ballot. Like it's already earmarked.
Sorry,
because that's where people would maybe be a little afraid. Like, hey,
is it
this
earmarked,
extra
right?
money?
I don't know how that looks on the ballot, but that is what came to us when they recommended from that council.
Okay.
The Citizens Advisory Committee brought that. That's what they wanted to do. And what they did not want to see happen, we've got a $5 million bond initiative that we haven't pulled yet, but it's in the budget to pull it for roads. And I had a tendency to agree with them on let's not create more debt. Let's if we can, and there's any money, let's utilize that and maybe a portion of our beginning balance to fund that instead of creating more debt with a bond that you got to pay, takes 15 years to pay off. So that was their whole goal when they pushed this, when they came up with this plan. They were conservative on their nature with how they did it, and so that's what you're voting on. Essentially that's what you're voting on, and the way it would start is we would front end that, because you won't have any funds available when it starts, and then we'd front end it, and then at the end of it we would take that, because that beginning balance would then drop below that 16%, and then we would just refund the beginning balance and move forward, so we keep it back. But that's how the police department. That's what it's going to look like on the ballot.
Okay.
And you had said something similar that was maybe what was going to happen when you were on the podcast, and then I think we announced it like two episodes later, so we changed that question a little bit. I think I thought it was a good idea.
I had the same train of thought. It was a little bit different, but
it was different. But
the different being would be the ending balance, whatever's left, go to roads. I didn't, but I think it's a great idea because already, you look at, let's look at Johnson Park and Benjamin Avenue. Benjamin Avenue was paid through the chaff tax, which is a gasoline tax.
Yep.
And Benjamin Avenue cost $16 million to do. It's unfortunate because Benjamin Avenue was on the docket to do back in like 9 or 10, and it didn't happen. And if it would have been done back then, it'd have been about 7 or 8 million. But the reason it didn't happen then is because the East Norfolk Avenue bridge failed, so they kicked it down the road, so the chaff tax is now financing that bond, but that is not a property tax build. I just want people to know that the Benjamin Avenue did not come out of property tax. And same with Johnson Park. Johnson Park, 60% of it was all done through grants, partnerships, and donations. The rest of that came through the Keno dollars and chaff tax. So neither one of those were a property tax based funded project.
right,
Your property taxes typically go to that portion of the budget. Mainly goes to where you need the most security, which would be your police and fire.
right.
So,
And we're only talking like, what is the current Norfolk? Is it 16% of your property tax, or is it? Is that what it is?
It's 16 cents per dollar, or 16%.
That's what I was going to say.
60%.
Which 60% of it goes to your schools.
Right.
So
Right.
that's where all your money's going.
Yeah. We did get another question come through. This is from Anita Larson. Is it hard to get people involved in local groups? I know you've talked about different committees and such. Is it easy to fill those roles, Are there a lot of people stepping forward, or is it hard to actually find people to step up? I feel opinions are never lacking, but sometimes actual involvement can be rough. Do you see community involvement as a concern, or do we actually have lots of folks wanting to be involved?
So the people that I've talked to, especially with this TIF council, I've reached out to 4 individuals that I feel would be who I would want to add, and then I've reached out to. I want to find some people that aren't really so much with what I'm thinking, and have them ask. But any individual I've talked to are like, "Oh yeah, I'm very interested in doing that." So I never have been told no on community involvement. I don't know, because for the last few years I've been on council, and so when they make appointments like the tree board or planning and zoning, that's all gone through the mayor. So I don't know how much individual involvement, but I feel like if there's a citizen out there who wants to step up, and put their hat in the ring, we should provide an opportunity for them to do that, and provide the resources for them to put their name in there, so that we have that name readily available when something comes up. Because if I did become mayor, I'm definitely going to push for more of that. I really feel like community involvement is very important, and we just don't want to be an isolated council and mayor up there, so.
Do you feel that's the way it has been?
Like I said, I don't know as much, because being on the council, I'm not involved in that.
I meant, do you feel that it was more of an isolated mayor council?
I think they started the Parks Board recently. I would say it's no different than it has been, but I feel like it could be better.
Gotcha.
So,
can you do anything to promote childcare in Norfolk? This is from Dylan Field.
oh sure. Well, we were talking about that earlier. The Wells, well, not the Wells, but they reported that Norfolk has 150 new openings in daycare in the city of Norfolk, but that doesn't meet the need whatsoever. Right. And I know you're heavily involved in daycare now, and I've always kind of like bounced around the idea with the smaller daycares. Is there a way that those daycares could form a co-op, and like have a cooperational, like a co-op type situation?
You mentioned that.
You know what I'm saying? Because you're only yourself, and and then you've got your bigger daycares that operate differently than you do. Would there be an opportunity where, if you could form something where it was easier to get insurance, it was easier to get, the steps you need to take to become a daycare provider? You provided solutions where they could find these things out. Would that open up the avenue for more people to want to get into daycare, or, without me knowing much about it?
Yeah, I was just you had said that earlier, and I thought about it between us talking and coming on here, and the tough part would be that a lot of it's already state and
right.
federally regulated. So
I was going to say, once you jump into that, isn't the state and federal going to want to get their fingers in it?
They'd have to. Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
Yeah,
it might be a possibility. The providers have their own kind of groups, and they bounce ideas off of each other.
So being in the business, I know I've been the one getting asked questions.
Red
but
tape.
I should ask you. Okay.
Red tape. I say that.
Red tape at what levels?
The state level, number one, would be the best one. We've had issues, and I've brought it to different people, but there was an issue where, provider had something happen with the house, and then they couldn't get their license quickly moved to another home
right.
to be able to stay open. And then, so that not only affected the provider, but it affected all the families that in an already arena where you can't find spots.
Right.
And then the red tape to get that done is just kind of crazy. And then just the red tape of opening, and I get why they do it to an extent, maybe not as much as they do it, but you are taking care of kids.
Right.
You don't want to make sure there's not abuse going on, or could potentially be going on. Right. But I just think with some of that stuff, it's just a lot of emailing and red tape and things that could be done in person.
So would it have to be done with more of like a bigger daycare type provider? Would meet the needs, or would
the
you?
Bigger? I don't know. It's a tough one, because I don't want to. We're the in-home type, so I don't want to affect. Because it's a whole different animal when you start doing the facilities. So, and I don't know much on that side.
Right.
I know more just the in-home stuff,
but it is a problem.
It is definitely a problem on all sides, because daycare's and it's getting expensive, especially when it comes to in-home stuff, because as prices go up, then the they're spending more money on the food and the things like that. And, depending on which kind of daycare, like with my wife's, we buy different types of foods. We're not buying the cheapest foods. We're buying quality foods, so, and food program only, reimburses so much,
Right.
Which also when Vance and I talk about food and government, not food, but when we talk about government help, government being here to help isn't always the way to go.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. That's always a tough way. Between that and the housing, I don't have answers.
I know there's a group that has been working through, like, I think the chamber and the city on trying to establish some ideas, and ultimately it could boil down to some of your businesses, getting together and saying, listen, this is becoming a potential problem for us because there's people that can't make it to work, or we could have more people could apply for these jobs, but unfortunately they don't have the opportunity to because they can't. They have to stay. They're staying home just simply because they have no place to take their kids.
I've thought about that too, and I don't like to force. I don't like to force some company to provide something or do something,
Right.
but it could be like you talked about. That's a massive benefit that could go. Like a lot of people don't pay attention to, they all they look at is an hourly wage, or $1. They don't look at, hey, you're paying my insurance, you're paying this, you're paying that, you're paying all this other stuff. That all gets factored in. That nobody thinks about that hidden cost. Whereas, your daycare could be part of that, but that would mean that your hourly wage could go down to make it profitable for a company too. So.
Not just that, then I'm going to be on the other side of that where it takes away from somebody like my wife being able to have a business. If there was less red tape, we could maybe open another one. But then you're looking at the cost. If a company wanted to come in and maybe help with the initial setup and things like that, because it's expensive to kind of get everything up and going.
I bet.
So.
But these companies could go to places like the state and say, hey, we need to deal with what's going. You guys are doing too much here. You guys are causing a problem.
Right.
You guys are
You
guys are making it too difficult for in-home daycares, which is making it difficult for my employees, which is making it. So that could be something that somebody needs to. That's where I would be more expecting a business to do on that side, is to lobby a state or lobby a a higher level, as opposed to just saying, hey, you need to provide it as a company.
Right.
Because you could do more power doing that. Like let's figure this out a little bit. Let's slow down on some of this and
Sure.
make
Plus,
it easier.
then do you want your employer to have control over
Your own kids.
your kids?
Probably
it
not.
goes right back to what we feel about the Department of Education. So it is what it is. Chad Hazelton says, "Why should I vote for you over Jim?"
Well, I think listening tonight, you've heard some of the solutions that I provided, and I feel like if you look at what I'm trying to do and understand that I'm trying to meet people in the middle. I'm trying to establish solutions that I think will provide a good base for Norfolk to move forward. I think if you're listening to that, maybe that's the difference. I don't know, but I think that I'm not really trying to compare myself to Jim. I'm just trying to produce what I feel like I can do.
But you think will benefit the city?
I really do. Yeah, I really do. Being on the council for as long as I have, these are things that we can do that will benefit the city.
Yeah. Ryan Hoffert asks, do you fear that these increases that sunset make it easier to pick another project after the previous one sunsets? So, yeah, it ends, but for how long?
Well, it's going on the ballot. I think he's talking about the police station, right?
But his point is, and I get what he's saying, because we kind of had the same thing with the bond in Battle Creek on the schools, is, you've already got something in, so people are used to paying that tax. And then all of a sudden we're like, hey, we could make another one. Yeah, this is going to sunset here, but let's just get this going, and we're going to make another one here, and there just won't ever be a sunset. We're going to create a new bond.
Well, on this particular one, it's stated, I think it's going to have to sunset. Right. But then I see what you're saying, but you're saying that.
But it's just one of those things that people.
Here's the thing, though.
They'll make it a certain way.
They go on the ballot. It goes on the ballot. And
people will twist it. People will say, people will just go, hey, what, you know how campaigns run, right? It could be a dirty campaign. I think that's what he's getting to. There could be a dirty campaign, say, hey, you're already paying it. What's it matter? Yeah, it's going to sunset, but you're already doing it.
I give credit to the voters when they look at things. If they don't feel like it's a good deal, they're not going to vote for it. $70 million bond initiative turned down.
Well, that one was terrible.
So I mean, yeah, it was a terrible deal, but it got shot down because it wasn't a good deal. This is something that has an opportunity to get voted on. Probably, I don't know where it sits. I would think it's probably got a pretty good shot. But then but my thing would be if you're a council that continually did not sunset, you just let things carry on, let it keep going and going, and don't sunset it. Then I think that's a bad track record.
Yeah.
Because when the library went and was done, sunset. When the ball fields and the water park were done, sunset. So we do have a track record of cutting them off when they're done. But again, here's how that's
kind of where he's at. We have a track record of just keep doing it.
But then again, if they are community pushed projects, right, and not a council and mayor pushed project. So if it's coming from the community for something we need, but if it's coming from the council out to you, that's two different things.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you with the balance of power with the mayor, I feel we're going to have more community-based projects coming for us, and those are the times we can ask for those. But if it's a council push project, I totally see where he's coming from. So,
okay, so last one, you kind of already answered this, but since the last one on here, Cole Peterson asked, "What is your motive to run for mayor?"
Well, at the start of the podcast, I kind of went into that. Where I was kind of raised where you give back to your community. When I was out in Sidney, Nebraska, I was on the volunteer fire department. When I got here, I looked into going to the volunteer fire department, but there was a lot. I just didn't have the time to do it. And so I got involved in other things. I got involved with the chamber. I got involved with the Home Builders Association. And then one day I got a phone call asking me to run for city council. So I ran, and then so it became kind of my way of being involved in the community and giving back to the community. And I feel it's important that everybody look for something that you can get back to. And like I said earlier, it doesn't have to be, you can do it. Do it for your church, do it for the schools where your kids go to school, volunteer to take concessions some night, that's huge. Or, so anything you do to give back a little bit. And that's primarily where it was. And then I also, for me, I want to see our community thrive and grow. It's important to me. I want to leave it better after we leave, kind of like when the torch was passed on to us from the generations before us and saying, hey, don't mess it up. I would like to be able to leave something better than we received it, and have a place where my kids want to come back to and raise their families and raise their kids. And so that's kind of my motivation behind things. So.
Perfect. I know we kind of already did this, but any last thoughts you want to give before we end the show?
No, I think we've kind of covered everything without me repeating myself.
Couple times.
Over.
A couple times probably.
No, I really appreciate you guys being patient with me and
100%.
moving this thing. I know it's my mom. My mom's been sick, and I know she's listening tonight, so I want to give her a shout out. She's a tough cookie. She's been through a lot.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what she's, just seeing her go what she's going through. But here's a little story for you. I showed up on Sunday morning, drove down there and got there about 6:30 in the morning, right when they opened visiting hours. So I went in to see her, and she was sitting there, and then the doctors came in and gave her some really bad news, which today she got some good news. So, but, we were both kind of devastated. But again, today we got some good news. We were happy about that. But she looks at me, she goes, well, weren't you, this is Sunday. She goes, didn't you tell me you were going to be going door to door today? Yeah. Why are you here with me? You should be going door to door. I'm like, Mom, geez. So I just thought that was kind of a cute little story for my mom.
Right.
Here she is, just
more worried about you.
Getting
your votes out there. Yeah.
And another funny thing is she had to have a procedure that I think it was the night of the first debate where I missed. She had a procedure that day, and she's in recovery, and they bring her in. The doctors come talk to us, and the doctor tells me, goes, well, I think she's got everybody on our medical team looking to vote for you. So she was in there promoting me. So she's something else. But I'm glad she's got a good day today. So I'm proud of her, and she's a rock, man. So
yeah, glad to hear she's doing okay. And we would have, if you would have called me today and said you were just under the weather, I would have drug your ass over here.
I know. It was time. We've been putting this.
That one we wouldn't allow.
Yeah, we wouldn't allow that one. The other ones, I've been totally okay.
Doing pretty good. You guys got me a nice cup of water here.
Yeah, I got you the big. Usually we give a smaller cup. I brought you the big mega jug today,
so it worked out good.
Yeah. Just want to remind everybody that last segment for the listener questions was brought to you by Box Drop Norfolk. Stop in and talk to Nate. mention you heard about them from this podcast episode, drop the name Touching Base, and get an extra $30 off. Enjoyed the listener questions. I appreciate all of you guys putting those out there. We were a little worried we weren't going to get any, and we got quite a few.
Yeah, I think so too.
And some of them were different than some of the things we already said, but some reiterations, but that's okay. Some people like to hear things a couple times, which is fine. If you don't got anything else, we'll probably just kind of...
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come out and send, or, kind of talk about my message and my thoughts on things and what I think we can do as a community moving forward.
Awesome. Well, thanks to my co-host Vance Neidig and producer Brendan Yock. Without them, the show would not be what it is. Huge thank you to Shane. Really appreciate you making time for us today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
And keep on the lookout for more great episodes. We'll see you guys next week.